several times at the concept of epistemology in different ways. I want to look at the standard dictionary definition and go through it to see if you can get anything out of it. So this is one of it, epistemology. Okay. So epistemology, so that's a Greek word. Episteme for knowledge and logos for theory. I don't know logos is for theory because as far as I know, logos mean either word or reason. Or maybe speech as well, but it's possible that this logi part comes from the Latin word. And it's possible that this logi is not derived from logos, but is derived from Latin logia, which would be something like study and maybe theory as well. Anyway, the adjective epistemic pertains to knowledge. Epistemics is sometimes used as equivalent to epistemology or is used to denote a scientific approach to knowledge. Okay. Epistemology is also equivalent to gnoseology, which come from gnoskin, to know. It's very rarely used nowadays, gnoseology. Now, epistemology generally starts with attempts to refute skepticism. Well, that can only probably modernist epistemology is focused on skepticism. You can say that, but you can't say about all types of epistemology. So epistemology generally starts with the attempt to refute skepticism by justifying the claim that knowledge is possible. So instead of defining what knowledge is, it is more focused on the question whether knowledge is possible or not possible. And that is a hallmark of certain type of modernist epistemology, but not every type of epistemology. And then proceed to clarify the nature and the scope of knowledge. That is, if knowledge is possible. The standard analysis of knowledge claims that it is a justified true belief, a definition initiated essentially by Plato. That's one of the definition of knowledge which we find in modern epistemology, especially nowadays, and objections against it and reasons to support it. So that's the definition of knowledge. One of the definition on which modern epistemology is focus is knowledge is justified true belief. And I think the focus is on belief because of the prior focus of the epistemology on the question of skepticism. So a belief, so knowledge is a type of belief which is true. So not all beliefs are knowledge, so only true beliefs are knowledge. And not all true beliefs are knowledge, but only true belief which you can justify or give reasons for their truth. So if you hold a true belief but can't justify it, that is, you can't provide satisfactory reasons for believing in it. And I guess there can be two ways in which you can look at it. You can have either you don't have reasons, or you might have thought you had reason, but you don't have enough reason, so your knowledge is more a guesswork or intuitive knowledge. Or you do have reasons, but you are unable to explain it or make them explicit. So I guess is talking about the first possibility. So from this we learn that epistemology is modern epistemology anyway, is closely related to the problem is skepticism. The question whether knowledge is possible or not, the possibility of knowledge. That's one thing. And the second thing, which I guess follows from that, is that knowledge is understood in terms of three concepts: the concept of belief, truth, and justification. So there's a lot of stuff in more epistemology on belief. So then you define belief. What is belief? So there are a lot of debate. And then what is truth and what is justification? So different types of epistemologies will focus on different. So some will focus more on belief, some more on justification. I think belief and justification are more prominent. My impression is that anyway, for what I have looked at over the years. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so where are we? So the standard analysis of knowledge claims that it is justified true belief. By standard he means mainstream epistemology within Anglo-Saxon analytic philosophy. Although it is challenged most recently by Getier's problem, which we don't need to get into at this point. Because of this definition, that is knowledge as a true justified belief, philosophers have been working to analyze the relationship between knowledge, belief, between knowledge and truth, between knowledge and justification, and obviously we can come up with more. But as I said, justification and knowledge and belief and knowledge are more important. Truth is important too, but I think truth is dealt less frequently by epistemology, mainstream, and truth comes more in logic and all those things. The last issue is and in metaphysics and all that. But I might be wrong in my impression. In a sense, epistemology pays more attention to the problem what it is to be justified in believing than to knowledge per se. Yeah, that's true. So justification and belief becomes very important rather than what is knowledge, because obviously you have defined knowledge as justified true belief. So that is in contrast with if you look at medieval sources, medieval Islamic, even today in Islamic sources, knowledge is defined more in terms of its correspondence to reality. But in modern epistemology, I guess the correspondence question comes up, but that's more taken up by debates within metaphysics, I guess. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about here. Another main task of epistemology concerns the origin of knowledge. Okay, so where does knowledge come from? That is to that. So origin of knowledge means sources of knowledge. That's the important topic as well. Sources of knowledge. It's too dark. Okay, sources of knowledge. So that is to assess the role of sense, so sense and reason in acquisition of knowledge. To acquiring knowledge, what's the role sense and reason play? Whether reason alone can acquire knowledge, or it has to combine with senses, or whether senses alone can acquire knowledge, whether it needs reason. And depending on your question, you will come into one of the streams within epistemology. So you can be you would be empiricist if you think that all knowledge starts with senses, and you would be rationalist of sort if you think that you need some knowledge which is prior to the use of senses. That can be either innate knowledge of sort, or at least some sort of structures on which sense experience builds, etc. So you would be a rationalist of a sort. And then there are mixtures of all of these two. So this is to assess the role of sense and reason in acquisition of knowledge. Philosophers are divided into rationalists and empiricists with respect to this issue. So empiricists are those who that knowledge must start with senses, and reason helps that, but reason can't do anything without senses giving it the data in the first place. Rationalists, on the other hand, say that reason can work in various ways without senses. So rationalism, represented by Plato, Descartes, and Leibniz, takes reason to be the source of knowledge, while empiricists, represented by Locke and Hume, argues that experience is the source of experience. By experience, they mean sense experience. And Plato is obviously not a modern. So modernists work with Plato, but this is so while empiricists, rationalism by Leibniz takes reason to be the source of knowledge. Obviously, Leibniz doesn't deny that senses play a role in that, but they do think that reason can provide the basic data as well. Kant attempted to reconcile both, claiming that knowledge is possible only by the combination of a priori intuition, then concept of the understanding, and appearance. So Kant basically reconcile, this is the one way to look at Kant. So he agrees with the empiricists that knowledge cannot start without data from senses. But he disagrees with empiricists and agrees with rationalists to the extent that he thinks that intuitions are blind. Information doesn't mean anything unless it draws upon the concepts of understanding and reason. So he tries to have his cake and eat it as well, I guess. Contemporary epistemology is dominated by Anglo-American philosophy and is largely empirical. Or so it claims. Corresponding to the it does claim empirical, but it's highly abstract as well. Corresponding to the developed, so it is empiricist to the extent that it works with, it considers sense experience as the basic source of information, etc. But then it theorizes it in very abstract way. Corresponding to the development of the philosophy of language, speech, and meaning become important issues. Since epistemology is closely associated with psychology, because psychology deals with human mind in its working, and the philosophy of mind and the philosophy of mind, perception, memory, imagination, other mind, and error are major topics. Is that the let's see. This is the thing. So it was saying that corresponding to the development of the philosophy of language, speech, and meaning become important issues, since epistemology is closely associated with psychology and the philosophy of mind, perception, memory, imagination, and other minds and error are major topics. In major topics in what? In epistemology as well, I guess. The discussion of induction and a priori knowledge are also prominent, in part through the association of epistemology with philosophy of science. And this is a quotation. Questions such as these about the nature, origin, and limits of human knowledge motivated the enterprise of epistemology, past and present. I think we got some, was a good entry. I think we learned some things about modern epistemology. First thing we learned was that it's more focused on skepticism and the possibility of knowledge, and then secondly it defines knowledge as true belief, true justified beliefs. So truth, belief, and justification all become important concepts and their relationship. That's one of the main area of research. And second, about the sources of knowledge. That's the second thing. And main sources of knowledge are sense and reason. So which sources have priority? Depending on that you would have rationalism and empiricism, and if you want to combine these two, you will get Kant and his enterprise. And then through the rise of philosophy of language, certain language become important as well. And since psychology deals with human mind, and human mind is essential to acquire knowledge, so many issues related to the human mind which are discussed in psychology also become very important in epistemology, especially the question of perception, memory, imagination, and the question of other minds, error. And finally, induction and a priori knowledge, and these issues become important through the connection with philosophy of science. And also these questions are important for both empiricism and rationalism. So we got some good overview of what epistemology is and what type of topic it discusses, etc. At least modern epistemology. Okay, thank you.